Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Black Gentleman's Culture Premium Cigar and Spirits channel. Today I'm out front with a Cuban Vegueros Entretiempos. I butchered that, so what I know. This is a 4.75 cigar by 52. And I've had this cigar, since, if I'm correct, 2018. So I've aged them for a while, and these were rolled in 2017. So, yeah, going on to 9 years, basically. Now, today I then paired this with an Honoro Vera red wine. It's a Spanish red wine. Why? Because I could. And remember I said I was going to keep doing pairings. Now this, give me a second because I'm still debating on what kind of steak I would call this. The reason why? This is the first Cuban that I decided to put on this list. And like I said, sometimes you gotta take your time and not rush, and be very unique with it. Don't just give out some regular standard what people expect you to say answer. That being said, as you can see, I hit it with a straight cut. As you can see, it's going very well so far. Do me a favor, let me take a quick puff, because this is a Cuban and they do like to go out. So, that being said, like I said, I paired it with a red wine, and I'm going to see how this goes. Now, this isn't my first one of this cigar, but, like I said, this is the first one I've ever had with wine. So I'm going to go ahead, and since this is a smaller cigar, I don't know if I'm going to do a first stir. I'm going to debate on it. But if I don't do the first stir, it'll definitely be the halfway point. Now, the cold draw was definitely getting a sweetbread coming off of this. One, because it's been aged for so long. Off of the body, I was getting hay. And off of the foot, I was definitely getting hay and earth. Alright, folks, like I said, I'll be back. And I paired this, like I said, with a red wine. Alright, I'll see y'all then. Okay, everyone, I'm back, and right now, I'm giving these to a 7.5, in between 7 and 7.5. This red wine is basically what I would say is a dry wine. It's very tart. If I would say, you could definitely taste the cherry in this, but it is a tart cherry. Now, as far as the cigar has this undertone of red pepper with a little bit of what I would say is espresso, like an espresso coffee. I learned this because of my wife, and she had this particular cigar, and she's like, wow, I could really taste the coffee in this one. That being said, I paired these two because before this would have been a budget-friendly pairing, but right now it still is, but the cigar has taken a big twist. The cigar usually went for about $5-6. Now this sucker is up to $16 a stick, so yeah. But the wine itself is what's keeping it down. Altogether, I would say these two will still be budget friendly, a $30 experience, depending on where you're at, where you grab this wine. That being said, like I said, the tartness from the cherry and the wine and the the cayenne pepper from the cigar are somewhat canceling each other out. And I would say they're not overpowering each other, but it's not something to brag about either. It's just a very calm and subtle experience. That being said, let me get back to the cigar and I'll let you know how it's going. Okay, everyone, we're back and we're at that halfway point. As you can see, the burn right now is on that kiddie roller coaster scale. The draw is, like I said, perfect. If I wanted to use it as a straw, I could. Now, let's get back into this. First of all, that peppery part of this has died down. I believe it's just because when I first lit it. But it is spices. Just a mixture of spices that linger on the palate. And it lingers even through the wine. So right now I can say this is definitely a medium-bodied cigar. And the aging has done it well. Because the smoke is creamy and it's smooth coming through the retrohale. So even though there is spice coming off of this, it will not burn your nose through the retrohale. And like I said, this is another one of those beginner people cigars that you could introduce them to, because it will live up to the billing as a nice cigar to start someone out with. Now, as far as the wine with this, like I said, I've said it was more of a 7, and I'm inclined to stick with it. About the time I get to the final third, I may change my mind and I'll let you know. But the one thing that I am going to say is I'm going to treat this cigar as a tri-tip steak. You could get them in many shapes and sizes, but they, like I said, it's somewhat of a triangular shaped piece of steak. They're flavorful like this cigar, and sometimes you need to tone it down. Well, let me tell you, the wine is toning it down, but it's still slightly overpowered by this cigar, and that's why I've been sitting at a 7. Now, as far as everything else goes, it's a traditional Cuban. As you can see, it's quite ugly, lumpy. And like I said, this was traditionally a budget-friendly cigar. But right now, because of the tariffs and the selling of the company, well, no. The price has moved this away from the typical budget-friendly Cuban cigar. That being said, I'm going to go ahead, get into this, and I'll be back with the final third, and I'll let you know exactly what I'm going to label this as. All right, folks. And here is the last of the wine. As you can see, it's somewhat thick. It has legs. It's running down the glass. I'm trying to swirl it, but there's a fly dive bombing me. But as you can see, it's sticking to the glass itself. Like I said, this is a decent wine. I don't think it's really meant to be enjoyed with a cigar. This is probably something you really want to eat with a meal. Drink with a meal. But the main thing about this, like I said, the flavor on this is extremely tart. And it sits on the palate just like a good cigar. The tartness stays there. So, overall, I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, I really thought about it. I'm going to give these two a 7.5. Because like I said, I feel I could do better, but it's not the worst. I had the worst the other day, and I literally had to stop the pairing. That being said, I'll go ahead. As y'all can see, there's a nice little fruit fly that came out of nowhere that I want to get down with the wine. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And like I said, I'll see y'all on the next pairing. Now we are down to the final third, and this Cuban has started acting like a Cuban. As you can see, the burn is completely just everywhere. No kiddie roller coaster, it's doing its own damn thing, which is typical. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say this cigar with the pairing, I'm going to give it a 7.5. Like I said, it's nothing spectacular, but the spice coming off of the cigar and the tart cherries coming from the wine, they're not a deal breaker, but I'm feeling and I'm thinking it could have been better. But that being said, again, this is a Cuban cigar and they are known for rough burns sometimes. And like I said, I've had this in my humidor close to 9 years, if not more than 9 years. And it is, well, excuse me, not 9 years, what? Going on 9 years. And that's just how it goes sometimes with some of these Cuban cigars. It's very easy to draw, as you can see. I've said it before, I could use it as a straw, but it is what it is with these. The burns on them sometimes are just off. The only good thing is I didn't have to use the perfect draw on it to open it up. Speaking of that, hold on. And I'm outside with my wife. Go ahead, let it out. She coughed, folks, as you can hear. But, like I said, it's a typical, what used to be a budget-friendly Cuban cigar. Now, anyone who have these, do not pair it with a heavy red wine, which I believe this one is. It's not the worst, but it definitely isn't the best. So that being said, I'm going to say what I always say. If you have a lot of cigars, go ahead and smoke them. If you have more than a lot of cigars, go ahead and make another cigar head by sharing them. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. As you can see, thinking faster than what I could talk. And I'm going to think of a better pairing I could do later on this week. This is going to be the second video for August. And I'm thinking I could do better. I got the wine in mind. I don't know what cigar. I have a bunch of them that I have in mind. Have a couple of Davidoffs I may want to smoke, or I may go ahead. I'm thinking about another cigar that I'm thinking about purchasing later on towards this month by Atabay. So I'm really there. I'm just stuck at this moment. But what I can say is I managed to get a hold of my favorite bourbon, and I'm definitely going to probably do the next video with that. And anybody, if you had early times bottled in bond bourbon, you know that is one of the best bourbon and budget-friendly whiskeys out there. That being said, I'm going to see you on the next cigar.